The Julian Assange case continues its slow drip of shocking new revelations as it enters extradition hearing day 3. We're now learning from his attorneys that orders for Assange's arrest may have come straight from the Oval Office and that Washington had contemplated offing the WikiLeaks founder. Continuing our coverage of the Assange case, former UK MP and friend of Julian Assange, George Galloway, weighs in. So, George, I'm not sure which detail is more stunning, the plot to possibly kidnap or poison Julian while at the Ecuadorian embassy, or that Trump's new acting DNI boss, Rick Grinnell, brokered this deal for his arrest, acting on direct orders from Trump.
Well, it is shocking. In fact, there's a stream of shocking events even today. Julian took ill in the glass bulletproof box in which he's currently sitting in the courtroom, unable to communicate with his lawyers. This is a bulletproof box for a person who's accused of publishing documents. No violence, no terrorism, nothing. And he's flanked by 2 prison officers inside that glass box. And therefore, even if he was sign languaging messages to his lawyers, he would not be able to do so in confidence in any way. He was asked by the judge how he was he fit to carry on? And he made a plea, a heart-rending plea, that actually he couldn't even follow what was happening from inside this glass box. The counsel for Julian and the counsel for the prosecution asked the judge if Julian could come and sit on the bench with his lawyers, both sides agreeing, and the judge refused. There'll be much more coming about that. But the points you make are quite extraordinary. It's now established that there were discussions inside the US government about poisoning Julian Assange, killing him, murdering him, or kidnapping him. And you may recall, I certainly do, there was an occasion when the Ecuadorian embassy door was left open and the police were mysteriously absent. And it's thought now that that was the night that someone was going to come in and actually kidnap a man with political asylum in a sovereign embassy of Ecuador. But the tape recording, which broke late last night, for us anyway, it was quite extraordinary. A desperate plea from a close associate of the man destined to be your national intelligence director, begging a correspondent, Cassandra Fairbanks, to delete her tweets because the president had given orders in regard to Julian Assange. And this man sounded like he actually feared for his life. It's getting deeper, more disturbing, more dangerous even by the very day, Manila.
It is definitely a fascinating turn of events, George. So the U.S. government, officials here anyway, always like to harp on the U.S. being this beacon of free press and civility. They chide folks like Kim Jong-un in North Korea for simply offing any political dissidents or any of those in the press that they deem dangerous. Is this anything new to Western culture then, George, new to the U.S. under Trump? Or is this just a case of more accountability now because there are cameras everywhere, there's recording devices everywhere, and people can publish and tell the whole world instantaneously?
Well, a bit of all of that, but it first has to be stated that you do have a freer country than we do, a freer country than many, maybe most countries do. Whether that would survive if there was a genuine contention for a systematic change in the United States is a matter for speculation. But you do have a constitutional right, which we don't, given that we don't even have a constitution. And it's turning out in the British courtroom that actually even the words on the extradition treaty don't actually apply. They only apply one way. No U.S. citizen can be extradited almost anywhere in the world if they're accused of a political offence. But in Britain, you can be extradited on a political charge, even though that's specifically excluded on the face of the extradition treaty. But the reality is, if this process continues, if this trial continues, if Julian disappears for the rest of his life, then you can forget about the Pentagon Papers, My Lai, and Sy Hersh's revelations about the massacre in My Lai. You can forget about great whistleblowing publishing like the Sunday Times thalidomide, which was the benchmark for British investigative journalism. All that will be history, because no journalist is going to want to end up in a glass bulletproof box in Belmarsh in the Woolwich Crown Fort, facing extradition and imprisonment for the rest of their life. It has a chilling effect. I go further. It has a killing effect on freedom of speech, on a free press.
It was almost a killing, George. And lastly, isn't this kind of adding insult to injury now that we're learning that the U.S. was considering offing Julian, given some of the things that he published revealed the U.S. military shooting Reuters reporters dead on the ground? Isn't that some sort of sad irony?
Well, I think that's perfectly observed, actually, because the one thing that Julian did with his endless revelations about high crimes and misdemeanors was to show us that actually we're not crazy. We were told we were crazy, told we were conspiracy theorists. But when you read the cables that Julian published, it turns out that we didn't know the half of it, Manila. That things that we were told we were mad to contemplate, as if our rulers would do such things, were nothing like as bad as actually happened. And in a way, that's Julian's great service to us. There's almost nothing you can say now that isn't possible, is beyond the realms of possibility, because if you can murder Reuters journalists on the ground and then plan to murder the man that revealed the story about it, we're down the rabbit hole. And as Lewis Carroll might put it in Alice in Wonderland, we are really down the rabbit hole.
Certainly a change of how news is covered, George, thanks to your friend. So we will continue to stay on top of this story. George Galloway, as always, appreciate your insight. Thank you.